Yo, what is going on, Senpai Squad? Welcome back to a brand new video, and today we've got a review for chapter 188 of Black Clover. Now, I'll be 100% honest, some of the parts within this chapter, especially towards the end of the chapter, in my opinion, were really unclear as to what was going on, which is a shame because one of my favourite aspects of the Black Clover manga is how easy it is to actually follow during fight scenes, mainly in your head, as opposed to other series. But for whatever reason, whether it be a genuine rush within production of the chapter or whatever, especially with it being New Year's, maybe that's the reason. Maybe they cut some panels short and cut some panels out towards the end of the chapter during the fight with Asta and the entirety of the Black Bulls, really, versus Gauche and Mari. That's where the main confusion came in, and I've seen some other people were a little bit unclear as to what was going on, so I just wanted to point that out, that despite it being a great chapter in my opinion, there was definitely some flaws within continuity within chapters. Is that a word? I'm not too sure. Within panels even, but that's just my opinion on that. The death threats that fans said they were picked up on for Henry last week were justified within this chapter, because there was definitely a sense of, oh wow, Henry's actually going to die within this chapter, which I personally didn't really pick up so much on the death threats last week. I thought, you know, stuff like that happens all the time, and I didn't expect Henry to die, but part of me also thought, maybe because they don't expect Henry to die right now is why Henry will die, because there'll be a shock to our system and it just would not be predictable. However, Henry obviously did not die within this chapter, but he was very, very close. And people who say Black Clover has no sense of emotional value to it whatsoever are proven wrong within this chapter, because we've only known Henry for literally this arc. Only this arc is all we've known Henry for, I believe. Maybe the Royal Knights? No, he was introduced within this arc right at the start, so we don't have a huge connection to him, and we didn't even know his backstory until the beginning of this chapter, which I'll get into in a minute. But the fact that he was this close to dying, so close, I mean, the way he was going to go out, I thought was fantastic, and that was the emotional aspect of his death, even though he didn't die. The fact that he they were all in a mirror Black Bull made by Grey, but Henry separated the Black Bulls so that Asta, Grey, and Gordon were flying off into safety, essentially, while Henry just kind of jumped down, because obviously when he's outside of the Black Bull mansion, house, guild, whatever you call it, he absorbs all of the mana around him. That's kind of like the defect of his body. It's his illness, essentially. So his plan was to obviously absorb all of Gauche's mana, or Elf Gauche's mana, but in return Henry would have died because he's not within the confined space of the Black Bulls guild mansion house thing. And I can't wait for this scene to be animated within the anime, purely for the fact that I give Studio Perio a lot of hate, because they're definitely not my favourite studio in the entire world, especially with what they've done with Black Clover. However, I do think they kind of nail on not just fight scenes, but kind of like emotional scenes as well. I think, picture it in my head with the emotional music, you know, the slow-mo of Henry falling down with all the flashbacks, all of that. I can tell already that it's going to be an extremely sad episode when that comes out. And then, you know, obviously Asta kind of just screaming, saying that you're not dying yet, Henry, and then we see Asta a flashback of Asta with Henry and how their friendship kind of began, essentially. We even saw Gordon saying let's live together, which, you know, Gordon doesn't usually speak a lot, and despite how much I love him, obviously he wants friends. And he went all out to protect Henry with his poison magic, which probably, you know, quick slide in here, that Gordon's poison magic is still fantastic. I absolutely love Gordon to pieces. But like I said right at the beginning of the chapter, we saw Henry's backstory, which we hadn't got up till this point. And I think now the only characters without a backstory in the manga are Grey, Charmy, just Grey and Charmy, I think, which is extremely interesting to see what's going on with them. But anyway, Henry's backstory, it was extremely interesting to find out that he's actually part of a royal family or a noble house. I didn't see that coming, and the way that they kept it extremely discreet by saying a certain noble house makes me think that, okay, what noble house is this? Is this one that we're aware of? Is it going to be something else? Is he even from the Clover Kingdom? Maybe he's actually an outcast from a different kingdom. Maybe from like the Spade Kingdom, the Diamond Kingdom, all this. A noble family over there. I'm not sure what the royals are like within other kingdoms, but maybe that's a possibility. I don't know whether they used the phrase certain noble house as a way to kind of just keep it discreet for now, and then we'll find out later in the story, or if they've just done that because it's just some random ass noble house and, you know, we won't really learn about it. I'm not too sure, but I definitely was very intrigued to that. His backstory was very sad. Obviously, he was born with this defect essentially, and they didn't want that kind of ruining the name of the royal family, the noble house. So they essentially just loaded him off into the what is now the Black Bull's mansion, so that, you know, it'd keep him alive, because if he died at the age he was, then it would have been a disgrace for the royal family. So he was outcast because of his defect, essentially, which, you know, we know is nothing new in the world of noble families within Black Clover. Grey also has really powerful magic. Now, this is not new news for anyone, but it's just the fact that we've seen her throughout these last few chapters just keep on going at it. It really makes you think what the limitations to her magic is, because, and there will be drawbacks. There has to be drawbacks, otherwise she's just completely broken. She can essentially negate any magic power used against her, or just in general for that matter, to work into her favour. Now, the example I kind of brought up in my head to what a potential drawback to her magic is, if it's not been given to us already, which I'm pretty sure it hasn't, is the fact that she probably needs the same amount of mana that was used from the other user to create the spell, if that makes sense. I explain that terribly, but for example, Lix, when Lix was fighting, Patry was fighting against Julius, and he was going to make it rain with the light magic and the swords, you know, could have Grey potentially just transformed that into something else, like rain or something like that? Or would the drawback be that she can't, purely for the fact that the amount of mana used, that Patry used in that spell, just far exceeds anything that Grey could dream of? Is that the potential drawback? I think that would work, that would make sense, and it would make her a lot less broken. Now, getting towards the end of the chapter, when I was saying I was getting a little bit confused in terms of panels and what was actually going on, one thing I did pick up on, which I thought was really, really cool, was the Grey and Aster combo. And what Aster did was transform into Aster's sword. Aster then threw the sword to Henry, and then bang, she released the transformation magic, and Grey pushed Henry out the way, saving his life, which was just a really interesting part of the chapter for me. Just seeing how they've hardly interacted, but their chemistry was fantastic straight off the bat, and it also highlighted Aster's just battle instincts, and I guess you could also say Grey's actually as well, her battle instincts, to be able to, with no communication, transform into the sword. Aster knew straight away what to do, and Grey had a plan in mind. I think despite those two having very little chemistry together, and Grey being extremely shy and how she is, the battle instincts between the two of them there showcased that it was just fantastic. And also, one thing which I found very interesting, which I'm not sure how many of you guys picked up on, right at the end of the chapter, so the very last panel, was Aster punched, or at least went for a punch, it seemed, on Mary, or at least Elf Mary, which is pretty damn crazy, because Aster's not a very violent person. We know he cares for Mary a lot, and that may be the reason why he's doing it, because he cares for her so much. My reaction to this is, what the hell is Gauche going to think? If he learns about that, Gauche is going to go absolutely ballistic on Aster when he finds out he full-on punched Mary. So, extremely excited for the next chapter. I thought this chapter was fantastic, apart from the slight little nitpicks I said towards the end, where, and it's probably just my own fault for this, not being able to follow it very well. So I won't rank this episode down too low because of that. But like I said, it was a very interesting chapter. Great to see some more of Henry and his backstory, and that extremely emotional scene with his death, or what would have been his death. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're not already to become a member of the Senpai Squad. Leave all of your thoughts and opinions on this chapter in the comments section down below, and I will see you guys in another video. Until then, peace.